Hello there, and welcome back to the Hearts Wide Open podcast. I'm recording this quick intro a couple days after we recorded this episode. This is an extremely interesting episode that I loved recording. I got really excited about it. You can actually see it on the video. Um, yeah, and I just wanted to give you this quick note because, as you might have noticed, if you're listening to this before the 26th of December, that we posted this episode a little bit early because it contains a lot of insights and valuable tips that you can use in this holiday season. And it might serve you well to listen to this podcast on your way to your family or on your way back home, if that's where you're going. And yeah, so we're posting this one a little bit early. You won't be able to notice if you're listening to this episode after the 26th because I'm just going to change the date and pretend we posted it on schedule. So that's it. Quick introduction of the person that's joining me on Hearts Wide Open this week. His name is Jakob. He's been one of my oldest friends, one of my best friends as well. We know each other since high school. We went on tons of trips together. He's a psychologist and training to become a psychotherapist as well. And we talk about his work with psychology, his thesis that he recently submitted. We talk about, spending the holiday season or surviving the holiday season at home with your family. And we're sharing valuable tips on that and what we're doing. Also, it's just a very nice conversation between two very close friends, and I think you can see that as well. So I'm very excited, and meet Jakob, a world traveler, journalist, political scientist, psychologist, activist, and so much more. Truly an interesting personality. Looking forward to this conversation. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome back to the Hearts Wide Open podcast, the podcast for men about men's health. This week I'm here with a very special guest, and his name is Jakob. And Jakob and I are actually going back a long time. We know each other from high school. We spent a year in Canada together doing a work and travel experience after high school. We always stayed in touch in between. He's one of my best friends. And welcome, Jakob.
Hello. Hi, Dennis. Hi, everybody.
How's it going? How are you doing, Jakob?
Oh, I'm doing really fine. I'm really excited to be here and speak about mental health and issues around that. It's a dear topic to me. And it's very nice that you have this podcast and that there's a platform to talk about it and share thoughts about this topic.
Beautiful. And where are you at right now?
I'm in Vienna. That's where I live. And currently I'm in the library of the university where I study. And I'm about to finish my studies of psychology, actually. So this topic is indeed very dear and central to me.
Yeah, and you're almost finished, or are you finished?
I've handed in my final thesis, so I would say I'm finished. The university wouldn't say so. There's a final oral examination, which is on my thesis, so I present my thesis, but it's just a matter of I have to do it, and I'm excited to do it, but it will be finished in a few weeks.
Nice, man. Congratulations on that. And
thank you.
What is your work about actually? Like, what did you focus on as part of your thesis?
So actually, it was a long project where I also wanted to focus on something that I wanted to work on. So in the end, it took me 2 years, which were full of joy, sometimes frustration, but mostly joy. And it was a qualitative research. So I conducted interviews in several spaces. And the general topic is, it was research on agency, or one can say the capacity to act. So, which means do people believe that their actions matter and that their actions have an effect or not? And I researched on this, especially on a societal level. So, do my actions matter on the level of society? What I do, does it have an effect on how society is structured or not? And for this, I went to 3 places and talked to people there where sometimes people were involved in occupations and tried to change something about society in whatever way they wanted to.
All right, and what would you say? Like it's really now I'm very curious. Like, what's the outcome? Do people actually feel like they have an impact on the society, or like is there like a split opinion on this, or like what's actually the case? What are your main like thoughts on that?
To break it down, to simplify it, no, they do not have the feeling that their actions really matter, which is a bit like against what you would think intuitively. Because some of these people, they got together to occupy a village, for example, in Germany, which was supposed to be erased in order to enlarge a mining area. And hundreds of people went there to occupy this village, so this can't happen. In the end, it did happen. And even these people, in the way they talk about their experiences, do not really believe that what they do there or what they did there could actually change the fate of this village. And this is something very symptomatic, I think, also for our society. There have been many other clever books about this, that it's a feeling of our society and our time that people feel like there is a very restricted limit to how they can change things in their personal life, but also in society.
Yeah, I think like it reminds me of all these activist movements that are like very big right now as well, like Fridays for Future, or let's say now the marches for the women's movement in Iran, but also like Palestine, what's going on right now. Yeah, it seems really like there's like all these people going on the streets and like speaking up for what they believe is right, and then what's actually happening is happening super slow or not at all. At least that's the feeling I get. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's often also a question of in critical psychology, which is a branch of psychology which is also dealing with issues like this. It exists for 50 years, ever since the movements of the 1968 year. And this critical psychology differentiates between this agency or the capacity to act in a restricted form, which accepts the rules of the given society and then tries to reform or to make things better within this frame. But the frame is accepted. And I think within this frame, yeah, what you can do is restricted, and then there's the feeling of agency which is not restricted by this and which questions the frame in which society is organized. And I think this one can often see in very impulsive movements like the Black Lives Matter movement a few years ago in the United States as a reaction to the killing of George Floyd, where people question this frame. Or in France, this happened this year, where...
So wait 1 second. So let's just to make it more understandable also for myself. So there's a difference between like accepting, let's say now you said George Floyd, okay, the police system in America. So you can there's the one way is to accept that and like try to make reform happen inside that system that already exists, and the other one is to question the entire system and say this whole system is flawed. We need to come up with something new. Did I understand correctly?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So on the one side, maybe, okay, a more restricted, accepting the rules of the game thing would be to say all policemen need to wear cameras, whereas a broader, more radical approach would be we need a different form of policing, and police as an institution, how it exists right now, is not working for the interest of the people. And yeah, I think then if you want to look at it from a psychological perspective, it's about whether people demonstrating or struggling for one of the two really believe that and really feel that what they do can actually lead there, or if it's more of a symbolic thing, or maybe also to give themselves the feeling like they tried at least. But yeah, it's different if you try without the hope to succeed, or if you try with the hope to succeed.
That's so interesting, because I also like have to think about this often myself, and also make sure that I don't go crazy, because I feel like a lot of these systems are actually outdated, and I feel like I'm posting a lot on social media to raise awareness on what's happening around the world for different movements, and I don't know what my impact is, and a lot of times I feel like I'm drowning under all this stuff happening in the world and I can't do anything about it. Yeah. What would you advise someone like me who's just like subject to all this information of stuff going on in the world, and it feels so heavy on my soul, and I don't know what to do. Like,
I think what you're saying is also something which many people feel, which is on the one side really bad, that many people feel like this and have these feelings of powerlessness. But on the other side, that many people feel it, it's also, I think, the exit out of this, that people get together, speak about this, share their feelings, and organize together and form bigger groups, because individually it's often very hard to get out of this powerlessness. It is obvious that in a collective one can reach more. And yeah, it's important also with these collectives to speak about what one wants to change, but also about the feelings that one has on the way of doing that.
Yeah, I've now, I think I restricted my access a little bit to new information and news going around in the world, because that's just like a constant radio noise in my head, and like just like drags me down. But I think it's very good advice that you gave, to find like-minded people, to have someone to relate to talk about it for sure, but also to then maybe organize activism, like protest together, or like whatever else, like an online campaign.
Yes.
And to really feel less
or
alone.
Alternative structures of like places or services in the way that you think they should be. I think another thing that I want to mention that is really important is also, because it's so overwhelming and we have access to information to so many places in the world, it's also important to pick your battle and not feel like you are betraying other battles or something, but really choose what you want to dedicate your time to and what is important to yourself and to your surrounding, and where you see a point in investing your time.
Yeah, you can't do it all by yourself.
Thing. It can be, fighting for, I don't know, a place in your neighborhood that you think is important. Can of course also be something in a different part of the world if you have access there, online or something. And it can be exactly this, connecting people in different places in the world. It can be many things, but I think choosing, and that's also something that I really struggle with, choosing is important. Because otherwise you do, and this happens often to me, that then I do 5 things at the same time, and none of them with the energy that I would like to invest and that would be necessary to achieve something.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, man. That's just some truth bombs here. Like, I think it's really important to choose your battles, indeed, but just in life, but also with these type of things. Like, one thing I was wondering, why do humans even want to change the system, or why do we feel like we need to, or why do you feel like you want to speak up about certain things? Why are we passionate about things, and what does it mean if we maybe lack a passion, Like, for example, me, I'm very passionate about men's health, and this is kind of like my cause that I'm like making aware for men's health, making awareness for men's health, speaking up for it, making sure people like know about the stigmas surrounding it. Why do you think that's important to humans, and like I think it's probably linked to purpose, and maybe you can like link this with your knowledge of the human psychology. Well, why do people need a purpose, or like a topic that they want to speak up for?
Yeah. I think purpose is a really big dimension. And I quickly want to mention also that by doing this podcast, which I think is really amazing, you have also picked your battle. And that's really great. I wanted to throw that in there because that is in my mind. And
Thanks.
I think generally humans, and there's many studies on this, it's important for humans because we have the capacity to love. We have the capacity to feel empathy for others. We don't even know because they are human as well, or because they are living beings as well. And this, of course, can manifest itself in very different forms, in very different situations. But generally, we have this capacity, and you can see it in children already. And I think then often it's a question where and how much people get involved in trying to change things for a more just society, for example, in how close they feel it touches them, if that makes sense. I have an example in my mind that recently, very unfortunate and very terrible thing happened, that the sister of a friend of mine got murdered by her ex partner, and then my friend got involved in an incredible amount of public work around this topic of violence in partnerships, male violence, violence against females in general. And this tragic situation, this horrible situation, gave her so much energy to invest in this struggle. And I admire her very much for this. And I think, this made it clear for me again that if something really touches you, and if it touches you so horribly close, then this matters so much for you. And you have to, if people just read it in the news, what happens, it's so different than if you see it, or if you have, of course, personal connections to people who are treated unjustly.
Yeah, I think like me, like for example, when I'm like consuming this like online social media, and I get all these different news, I mean, storytelling nowadays is excelled compared to, let's say, 50 years ago, and the way you can tell a story as well. So I feel like I'm being made care for so many different things. At the same time, I'm not necessarily having that feeling to where I live. Like here in Amsterdam, for example, I don't really care about everything that's going on. I don't read the local newspaper all the time. I do go vote, but I didn't follow the election results like super like tightly or something like that, you know. I don't know. Yeah, that's just interesting how we're sometimes made care for things that we wouldn't care otherwise, and then things that we should be caring about.
Definitely.
That's a thought
And
that popped
I
up.
think in psychology, I can relate to something like the concept of diffusion of responsibility. I think it's called in English. So when you think, oh, you see an injustice or whatever, a crime or something, and you see it, but you feel, oh, there's so many other people around who could act, then you might not act at all because the others could act. And I think it also works the other way around, that if you see so many injustices that you could act in, it gets hard to act in the end.
Yeah.
So there's this classic example that, I don't know, you're at the beach and you want to go for a swim, and you have your camera laying on your towel, and if you don't tell the other people around you, please watch or one person at least, please watch my camera for a second, they might not do anything if someone else comes and takes it with them. If you tell them, they will do it. They feel responsible.
Yeah, true. Very good example. I've done that many times actually. Oh, wow. so many different interesting things, and like also for the listeners, it's interesting. Like Jacob and I know Jacob on so many different levels, and he knows me on so many different levels. We've been through a lot together, and it's very interesting to talk for the first time in such a format because I don't know, it feels a bit
Yeah.
more formal, but at the same time, I'm like, now that we're a bit into it, I'm really also feeling the vibe, and it's super interesting what you have to share actually about your work as well.
Yeah, and
Mm.
I can relate to that. Yeah, it's a bit strange to have this format, but in the end, it's, I don't know, conversations that we have so often,
I'm just
anyways, and
I'm
just a
just
bit more structured, maybe.
I'm just so happy to be here. Like I can't stop smiling. Like having you on here is like one of the biggest things for me right now. About you actually, maybe another topic. What are you
Mhm.
currently like going through? What's really present in your life, like mentally, personally? Like, yeah.
Mm. I think there's like two things that are very present, and I don't know, like I said before, I have problems choosing sometimes. So I will just quickly frame them both, and then maybe I will see what I want to, or we can see what we want to dive into
Mm.
more. On the one side, as I'm finishing my studies, there's the question of purpose and what do I want to invest my time in. I'm currently also working part time, but I'm not sure if I want to continue this work as like an afternoon teacher or if I want to do something else. So the question of, I don't know, perspectives and future and what do I want to dedicate most of my time to is arising. And on the other hand, it's almost Christmas now. We have that in a few days coming up. And I feel every year, like ever since, especially ever since I've moved out from my parents' place, that every year, like the weeks coming up, when Christmas is coming up, the weeks before Christmas, I feel more entangled in family dynamics than I feel normally throughout the year. Of course, or I mean, not of course, but I go to visit my parents and my family every year for Christmas. So that's one thing. But I also do that other times of the year. So there's something special also about these routines of Christmas, which, um, yeah, bring back similar situations where these routines have happened in the past, where I was a kid, teenager, whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, that's super interesting, especially as the holiday season approaches, and like a lot of us who are blessed to have a family that they can go back to. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll go back to their families, and then we are often faced with a role that we need to play that we used to maybe play in the past, and yeah, we just keep playing it because of the same people being around us, and just the whole, like, it's kind
Mhm.
of a system, like I think in psychology it's called family constellations or something like this,
Mhm.
that everyone plays a role in the family, and it's really hard to change your role, like how it's been for the past
Yeah.
20 years. Like if you now like, okay guys, please, I want to like be a bit less involved in your personal affairs over the Christmas table, then that's really hard because everyone's expecting you to be involved, you know.
Yeah.
That's for me at least.
Yeah. Yeah. Then
uh,
that's a different dynamic in every family, but
mm,
the dynamic within a family is really hard to change. Yeah.
yeah, and no, that's something also like, yeah, it's something that I'm also getting anxious about because I'm leaving to visit my family as well over Christmas.
Mm.
I don't know. It's like looking forward to see everyone because I love them, and like we're gonna have a good time, and we're gonna be together and like have great evenings, moments, food, I don't know, game nights. And then at the same time, I know that there will be conversations and moments where I need to keep my boundaries up and I need to be sharp, not to get dragged into someone else's like conflicts or like solving problems for my parents or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's also a bit like, it's not only relaxing, it feels also a little bit like work for the mind. Like how do you experience that, and how is this for you and your family?
Mm. Yeah. I can really relate to these dynamics that you go into and that don't change so much over the years or the decades. That for which, yeah, there are relations that changed, but very little, I would say. Then to my parents, I'm always a kid, or their kid, and to my grandparents, I'm always a grandson, and this doesn't change this relation, even though on a personal, more direct level, of course, the conversations and what one thinks of the other might change. But coming back to this is still struggling, especially like even in a position where I live in Vienna. My family lives in the north of Germany, so I don't see them super often. And it's not like over the year we have a very constant contact. So it's also, there's the space to really live different lives and in the way that we want them to be. And then we come back and meet, and sometimes differences become more clear, I think, then. And I think, for example, talking about emotions is something that I think is really important and that I want to do, and that I try to do in my everyday life also here in Vienna. But in my family, it's not so usual to do that. So that's always a rupture, going back, being with people that I love, that I'm close to, but feeling like this is weird to do that, to talk about how do I feel, what maybe makes me sad or angry about them also. And it's difficult to find a space for that.
Now, for sure, I can maybe also some parallels between you and I. We both left the north of Germany around 18, 19 years old, and then studied in a bunch of places abroad and in Germany. Now you're in Vienna. I'm in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. And it's interesting because I can, when you and I spent a year together to go to Canada, for example, I feel like in that time we really developed together in a way. And then after that, we again went a bit our separate ways, of course. So then we again go in our own, develop in our own ways. And I think it's similar with a family. Like if you grow up at home for 18 years with your parents and your siblings, or just with your parents, or a parent figure, then I think you're they can see your development every day, and you can see how they do every day. So it's super close. But then now we're out of our families for over 10 years, and we've gone our own paths. We've developed our own selves. I've also, just like you, become much more emotional person and want to talk about emotions. Act with empathy, and it's much of a softer way I interact with my friends, for example. And then when I go home, I feel sometimes it's such a hard environment, because it's my family is not necessarily used to speaking about emotions. They show love in different ways, by I don't know, making a comment here or nagging you a little bit on something, and that's then the way of showing love. And for me, I became such a softie with my friends here that it's so hard sometimes to not get hurt by this kind of thing, you know?
It's true, and you just also go different ways, in the sense, for me, that's, for example, a topic that I would like to become a therapist also in the future. So talking about emotions, make it my job, basically, not only emotions, but mostly. And I think this is, in a sense, also a rebellion against this climate in the family where it wasn't usual to do that. And that is something that for many people in my family is not so easy to understand. Also I'm in therapy myself, and they don't understand in the way that I understand it, why I'm doing that. They cannot relate so much to it. For them, it's difficult to imagine what it's like to do that.
Like your parents also never went to therapy, or
And no, my parents didn't, my sister didn't, and I don't think it's so much in their scope of imagination to do that. Where, of course, the other way around, it's also for me very difficult to imagine what their routines look like or feel like. What they look like I can see, but what they feel like I cannot see. Like working 40 hours per week and then coming home in the evening and being tired and seeing things on a more concrete level, like what is important financially, what is how can we secure a future, whereas maybe emotions are not giving the same importance.
true. And yeah, it's also like I feel like our parents' generation was like raised in a completely different way than we were, and in a completely
Yeah,
different world as well. Like just technologically speaking. Uh,
yeah,
uh, it's
yeah, and also
mm,
the role, for example, of like opening up or going to therapy, especially for males, this opening up thing has this has changed society over the last years or decades, and I think it's a great chance in many ways.
mm,
And but yeah, it's a difference.
yeah, it's interesting. My from my family, I'm also the only one that I know of who goes to therapy, and I don't know, it's okay for me, you know. I'm also like I understand that everyone comes from different like backgrounds and experiences. Some people think that therapists um they uh they just want to like learn about their own psychological problems, that's why I want to therapize other people, or they want to like draw something between you and your partner or something like that, you know. It's like that they have some kind of motives, but I feel like all this like
Mhm.
stuff about therapists, I mean, I've seen therapists now, and genuinely I feel like, of course, if you want to do therapy, if you want to give therapy, you need to do your own work, you need to go to therapy yourself. That's one.
No,
But also, oh, there's a weird noise in the background. um oop, yes. Wow, that's so weird.
I don't hear it.
Okay, no, it's gone
I
now. It's
hope
gone
it's
now. It
not.
was like a hamster jumping up and down. I don't know, it's like
Oh.
in a hamster wheel. Um,
Uh-huh.
yeah, and I don't know, man. I feel like this. Yeah, now I just got thrown out a little bit of my
Yeah,
train of
that's.
thoughts. But yeah, I feel
But
like
yeah,
people have different ideas about what therapy is, and I think you can only really make a conclusion or like say what therapy is and what it does if you've experienced it yourself. And I can just tell everyone who's listening, try it out. Most of the time,
yeah,
your health insurance should cover at least the first session. Um, Go try it out. It can give you a lot of tools to deal with things like also family constellations, but also anything in your life actually. And most of the time they don't give you the solution, but it kind of helps you get the tools to deal with things in your life. At least that's how I
yeah,
experience therapy. Like now I feel kind of prepared to face all this family stuff over Christmas, let's say.
yeah,
um yeah,
yeah.
a
I
lot
think
of
it's
misconceptions about therapy in different generations, I feel.
definitely a lot of stereotypes being thrown around, and yeah, I think generally it can. I'm doing a psychoanalysis, and that's I think like the branch of therapy that I feel most attracted to, and I think it can give you a better understanding of your relationships, of your dynamics, especially also in your family, but in all relationships. And I think understanding is necessary as a foundation for everything, for all the changes. You cannot run around and try to change things without understanding how they came about and how they are structured. And yeah, I think that the biggest stereotype in my family against psychologists or psychotherapy is that it's a ripoff, basically. Like there's a person just sitting there, listen to you talk, and you pay them. Maybe your health insurance covers, maybe not, or not everything. Especially psychoanalysis often means that you go twice, 3 times per week, and then it can be expensive, and which is of course very problematic for obvious reasons. But yeah, just to that it's that people also in my family, but I think many people consider it worthless in a financial sense to do that in comparison to, I don't know, going to the football stadium or I don't know,
Nice
you're
one.
spending money on many things. I don't want to say this is worthless going to the football stadium, of course, but
Um,
yeah, you spend money on something, and why not on this?
yeah, I mean, look, honestly, it's like we spend money to go to the gym to improve our physical health. Why not spend money to
Yes.
go to the psychotherapist, psychologist
Yeah,
to take care of your mental health as well, you know? Like it's like physical and mental, why
definitely.
not
Yeah,
do both? um yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
I was lucky enough to get my therapy covered by health insurance.
Yeah,
But
that's
for example,
great.
like you said something like you go to 2 3 sessions a week, but like for me it was, for example, once a month, 10 sessions.
Hmm.
And that was actually very nice, and we were really focused on like not necessarily finding out so much where things come from, that as well, because we went like it was like
Hmm.
schema therapy, so we went into like child modi, different schemas of myself, etc. But then it was really focused on like how do I feel in different situations,
Hmm.
when do I start feeling really like this heavy emotions that like make me act in a certain way, and why do I act that
Hmm.
way, and how do I actually want to act in these situations. And then that really
Yeah.
taught me how to be more sensitive with my own self, so like pay more attention to my feelings, and then understand, oh, this is why I'm feeling like that, but I decided that I want to deal with it in this way now. um,
Yeah.
so I just feel like I have tools for every area of my life now.
Yeah, I think
It's
that's
kind of
really great that when sometimes you find yourself in situations where you discover that this is similar to what I've talked about in therapy, and now I have this emotion, or now I have this urge to do that, or the restriction to say that or something, and it's you or I start to realize these patterns or something sometimes,
Mhm.
that this is similar to another situation, and like this you can develop an understanding, I think.
Yeah, that's amazing. And like I'm also now wondering, like, to bring the loop back a little bit, what are some of the things
Hmm.
or like tools that you're going to use now that that you're like going home and there's like this anxiety maybe creeping in a little bit of facing all these family constellations, dramas, uncomfortable situations maybe. Like what are some of the tools or tips that you're using for this period?
I think one thing that comes to my mind is something that is coming from also my experience over the last 2 years, where I've been in psychoanalysis and where I've had these encounters with my family. And like I mentioned, one of these issues is like the talking about emotions or our relations in the family. And what I mean is that learning from experience, when I first started going to therapy and talking about my emotions and also my family structures more with friends in therapy and with friends, then I came home for Christmas, or maybe it was another time of the year, but I came home and I was kind of lacking the, I don't know, English word would be crowbar. Like I was going in there with force. I wanted
Hmm.
to be like, okay, now we talk about emotions. Turn off the TV. Now we talk.
Yep.
And I realized that this was artificial, that it didn't work, that it was not coming out of the situations. It was awkward, which generally is okay that a situation is awkward, but it didn't feel right. It was not the space. It was too much of a jump also, and it didn't work. And then I realized more and more that very, very often there are little situations that come up in the everyday contact with my family which have importance and which can, if they are seen for what they really are, they can be developed into meaningful conversations, into conversations about emotions. Maybe my mother is saying something that makes me feel something, and I can either reject and repress that feeling in the moment, and then later be like, why didn't I say what I felt? Or I can, if I'm aware of this in the situation, I can mention it, and then this can develop into something. Or if I see an interaction between others in the family, I can also jump in. And I think so. It's less coming with the perfect plan of, okay, we're going to sit down and talk about this topic and that topic, but more trying to be open and aware to see situations where something opens up to talk about meaningful things and about emotions. And I think this also requires to be concentrated or awake or aware, I don't know, to accept one's boundaries. And if I'm sick or if I'm tired, I might not be aware to see these situations or able to talk about the things that are inside of me. And I think then it's also important to rest and take time alone or with friends, with other people, and not overdo things. Maybe
Yeah.
I think that's something that I've come
Yeah, so
towards,
like
and also see I think oftentimes there are little gestures where other people, or in this case for me and my family, where they reach, like symbolically speaking, they reach out the hand and try to make a connection and talk about emotions maybe, and to see them in the moment and be prepared for them, in the sense that then if my aunt asks me how I'm doing, and maybe it's not the opener, but she asks me in the middle of a conversation or a get together, then I can use this space to really say, how am I feeling? And not just say, I'm fine. And
yeah,
yeah.
I love that. I feel like people I care about get the long "How are you feeling?" answer, and people I care about, like the lesser I know you or the smaller our connection, I think the shorter my answer to "How are you?" will be.
Yeah.
And I think that's so interesting that you said that in connection with your aunt, who is supposed to be like pretty, at least in the family tree, pretty close to you. And then if you would just go with like, yeah, I'm good, that's kind of okay, we're finished.
Yeah.
But then indeed, how you're like really feeling, if you're like then maybe opening up and then you're giving her the opportunity to also open up, and then
Yeah,
be a
exactly.
fruitful connecting conversation kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I just wanted to repeat some of the things you said because I find it super valuable to also for our listeners. So like when you're going back home and trying to have these like conversations, pace yourself, like not with a crowbar, not all at the same time, not in every conversation. It's
Yeah.
also fine to have superficial conversations or just not talk for a
Yeah.
while. And
Totally.
I think that's
Totally.
also really needed actually. So you can give it a break,
Yeah.
Be present, and being present, I think in these family gatherings, a lot of times there's also maybe some alcohol there and maybe people are intoxicated. I feel like when I'm intoxicated, I cannot be as present. So maybe it's smart to
Yes.
like, I don't know, keep it a bit
Yeah.
for the next day.
Choose. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I think this presence then also allows you to keep up your own boundaries, know when you've reached a level where you're like, okay, I need a break. And honestly, like one thing I really want to do is also just go there with love, like get into my family from a place of love, and then when I see things that
Yeah.
I don't like, when I see things we need to talk about or I think we should talk about, we can initiate that in a like respectful, calm manner. until a point, and then it's also
Yeah.
fine, you know? And then I can just have my parents and my brothers and just be loving and have a good time, you know? Like,
Yeah. I think that's really important. And there's one thing I wanted to add to that, or it's basically also in what you said already, that you come with love, but I also feel like it's really important, and it's a gesture of love, not to shy away from confrontation. And if you feel like you have something to say, which is maybe a critique, I think it's important to say it. And it's something that I struggle with sometimes, then I don't say it and regret it later. But what I mean that is that, like, critical comments, there's of course a respectful way and a loving way to share them. But I think it's a gesture of love because you also show that you trust the other. You trust the other person that they can deal with your critical comment. And I think it's less trust, like you're showing less trust if you shy away from saying that. And if often not saying something is the way of not showing trust or not showing love. And I
like
think
I
it's
just,
important to say, I was annoyed by this, and maybe explain where you come from. And I also think that if we should do that more often in all our relations. And if we don't do that, for myself, I experienced that if I eat up like criticism too often and don't speak it out, then I explode sometimes with words mostly, but they can be very hurtful. And then this is what really is dangerous for our relationships. Not saying it
yeah.
when we find the good words for them. And yeah.
That's so interesting. And first of all, I cannot remember a time when you really burst out in front of me. I would love to experience it at some point. But I maybe
I'm
I've
not
experienced
sure.
it and I just I don't know, just like got rid of it in my memories. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but one thing as well that what I found super interesting, and then I was thinking about the relationship between one of my brothers and me, and that often he just teases me with words, with certain things, and sometimes I don't like it, and I'm just like reacting in a very also aggressive, defensive way. It's like leave me alone, like stop or something like that. And then in other moments when I'm like more in the like more fine and present and my happy self, let's say happy child mode or something like that, and then I can deal with these type of things. So like he can nag me and I'm like, yeah, you know, it's fine.
Yeah.
But then like there's two different modes. One where I'm able to deal with it, and he, like you said, it's also a sign of love if he does that with me because he thinks, okay, you can handle me calling you this name.
Yeah. But it's also a sign of love that you tell him, sometimes I can deal with that, and sometimes it's maybe also a game where you can play along. And sometimes I don't feel like it. And that's to tell him that is to show him that you trust him, that he can understand you and respect that. Yeah.
Sure. Wow, so many interesting things. Like one thing maybe also that's interesting that I'm doing this year is like normally I used to go to my parents and stay there for 2 weeks, and I realized that this is just very intense. Living together for 2 weeks when you're not living together the rest of the year. And so this year I'm actually like, how do you call that? I'm losing my English. So yeah, we normally speak German with each other. Actually, we're just doing this for you guys, the listeners. But yeah, I pace it a bit more. So like I'm 2 days with friends, and then 2 days with my family, and then 2 days here, 2 days there. So like I also like pace a little bit the contact and the intensity of it all. Yeah, just because of previous experience, and I think this also makes me just feel way more at ease that I know, okay, I'll have my breaks in between, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea to balance it like this. And I will carefully watch and talk to you about how that worked and
Yeah.
maybe apply it next year because now it's too like short notice for me. But
Bro,
I
maybe
think
next we're booking Airbnb together somewhere, and then we can
yes,
pace it.
like a hangout space. Nice. That would be great. And I think like last year, especially, I felt it. There was also some fights in my family over Christmas and many things that I wanted, or like these situations came up where I felt like what I was mentioning before, like I felt, okay, now there is the situation arises where we can have meaningful conversations, difficult conversations, conversations that involve emotions. And at the same time, I tried to take breaks from these family dynamics and meet with friends. And often I then late in the evening went to meet with friends and maybe slept in a little bit. And the next day, breakfast with family started and family gatherings were coming. And then same thing, like late in the evening, I found like a breakout room with friends where I also shared and reflected on what happened in family, but in a different perspective, of course. And that that was really helpful, but it was also very intense. And at the moment, I felt like I had the energy and I could decide on everyday level if I wanted to keep on doing that or if I just wanted to sleep more, stay more in my room, relax more. But I could do this for a week or so. Then I came back to Vienna and I relaxed for 3 days. I didn't leave my bed basically. But yeah, let's see how it goes this year. But it's important definitely to have this balance and get out of the situation or the dynamic of the family, talk about it with friends. Yeah.
For sure. Let's do that, man. Let's do that. Since
Yes.
we'll both be
I'm
in the
looking
north of
forward to
Germany.
that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think this will be our longest episode so far.
Oh no. Oh, I'm really
No,
sorry.
that's
Cut
great.
down all
Just,
the
just
unnecessary stuff I said.
no, it was all super relevant and fun. No, it's completely fine. But I was thinking to maybe do a couple quick fire questions and then wrap it up.
Okay. Yes.
Cool. So, quick fire means that you're just responding in like 1 or 2 sentences, but if it's interesting, I might we might go a bit
Okay.
longer. So it's like not a
No,
super
I like
strict
the
format.
concept. Yeah.
Cool.
I will try my best.
So when do you feel the most authentic and like your real self?
That's really difficult.
Or it can also like
When
when do you feel the most alive? Can also be a way to ask this question.
when I feel very connected to the people around me. Yes, and often that was one sentence. The second one, often this takes time. It doesn't start after saying hello, but one talks up to this.
Okay, so do you feel most authentic and real and alive, like in the moments leading up to this feeling of connection, or while you're already building the connection? Also, like,
I think if there's such a thing, then the peak is after the building up of the connection, but definitely with other people. And yeah, then I have the strong feeling of I understand I can relate to the other person and the other person can relate to me. And that's really strong. I think I'm most alive in relations, in feelable relations.
beautiful. And let me get to the next one. Finish this sentence. Men's mental health is important because
The current dominant gender role of masculinity doesn't involve talking about emotions and is very destructive because of this and other things.
wow, that just hit deep, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Word. And let's go with one more. This one I find very interesting, and it's super open question. So, what do you think is overrated?
Who was overrated? should I say the first thing that comes to my mind, or
Yeah,
something?
if the
Think
first thing
about
that
it more.
comes to your mind is a football player, then please no.
No, the first thing that came to my mind is numbers. I think numbers are overrated and words are underrated.
Ooh,
And
can you
I say
explain
this
that a bit?
coming from the background as a psychology student, where they bombard us with numbers and statistics, and I think conversations and words and symbolism and the non-verbal part of conversations, they don't get enough attention. And so this is a very personal issue I have with numbers because of this
I
background of
love
studying
it.
psychology.
It's such a deep answer as well. Like, yeah, no, I love it. And yeah, as we are also having a conversation, I think that's the perfect place to wrap up.
Yeah.
Jacob, thank you so much for being here and for recording this podcast with me, being part of this experience. It's been such a pleasure. I hope we can do this again sometime for a
Yeah, I
second
would
visit.
love to.
Yeah, I think we have so much to talk about. Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to give the listener who's just finished listening to this episode? Something that you want to tell them, like, I don't know, any words?
Maybe wrapping things up, because we talked a bit about like society and thinking like, am I or are we able to change things? And I think it's the same or very similar in like family dynamics, where we might also feel like, oh, it makes no sense to try to do things differently or try to change things. And I think this is just saying this very empty, but I think it's very important to keep trying to find ways, for example, by talking to other people and building relationships and collectives, to keep on trying, and yeah, also appreciating the little steps that one has made, and maybe looking back and realizing, oh, I thought nothing has changed, but actually the situation I was in 5 years ago, or that our society or our neighborhood was in 5 years ago, was different, and there are things that are changing for the better.
Yeah. Some
And
things
yeah, I also want to
change.
thank you, Dennis, for holding this podcast. I think it's very, very amazing that you're doing it, and I'm very, very thankful for being here, and would love to come back and yeah, keep on doing that. I think that's, for example, one thing that changes things.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the next time. And
Yeah.
until then, I want to say, everyone, enjoy this period of, enjoy the holiday period. No matter what you're celebrating, if you're with family, if you're by yourself, if you're with friends, make it a nice season for yourself. Get comfortable. Yeah, and but yeah, if there's any questions about this episode, if you want to get in touch with Jacob, I'll leave a link how you can get in touch in the description as always. And with that, happy holidays from us, and see you on the next one.
Yes. Have a good time.